Welcome to episode 120 of BIM After Dark Live. Today we're going to be talking about this wall section and more, but we'll start here. The one thing that's really cool about this wall section is if I say select all text, what you'll notice is that there's only 10 pieces of text notes. So we're going to talk about what they are. They're not keynotes, a little hint. So let's roll into this episode. I'm super excited to share this with you guys and hang out tonight, and let's roll it. All right, hey guys, welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. Let me make sure the music's nice and quiet for you guys. This is episode 120, which is also part 6 of the North Wing series. So if you have not been following along, be sure to head on over to live.bimafterdark.com or go on over to my channel and check out the playlist for the North Wing, or you can check out all 119 of the previous episodes of this live stream over at live.bimafterdark.com or on the playlist here on YouTube. Thanks for joining me tonight. If you're here live, this is our weekly live stream where we talk about Revit, BIM, and really anything associated to those tools. Sorry, the audio was cracking up a little bit there on me. I'm going to go as long as I can tonight. You'll see I'm drinking some tea. I've got a little cold that I'm fighting, and I also just came from a Cub Scouts meeting with my son, so my voice is absolutely dead. But we've got some awesome folks here in the chat. If you are here in the chat, feel free to ask questions as we go along the way. I will do my best to check them out and have them feed into the conversation. Last time we left off in the in the North Wing series, we were actually talking about design options. Then we showed you some of the structural modeling. We walked through some of the design development pieces of it, and so on. So even some twin motion and some presentation techniques. And so right now I'm actually in the heat of finishing the construction documents. I've been sort of pumping out some progress pricing sets to try and get some initial pricing for some of the trade partners I'll be working with. If you guys aren't familiar with this project, again, check out the series. It's a primary suite addition to my own house where I'm going to be not just the architect and designer, but also the general contractor. So, and I'm planning on sharing it all with you, including some of the GC side of it, which I'm super excited about. But what we're going to talk about today is something that I've been wanting to do forever, and it's updating or adding or embellishing on my template for small scale residential, and not utilizing text notes anymore. And so the first thing I'll say is I'm not going to be using keynotes. So anyone who came here looking for a keynote manager session, I'm sorry, that is not going to be this episode. I have some other episodes with other folks, and I'm more than willing to bring on somebody who wants to talk about keynotes. I'll start with saying why. In this episode, we'll talk a little bit about why I chose not to go the keynotes route, and why I chose to go the route that I decided to go in, which is what I'm going to share in a minute. Before we jump into that, I guess what I should do is just quickly we'll run through the document set where they are today. I know some people were asking to sort of get a glimpse of it as we go through this. And I will mention also that if you're interested in downloading this file, I post the progress sample file for this project in the BIM After Dark community on a pretty regular basis. You can go download one from 2 weeks ago, I think it is, and I'll probably post this one shortly once I'm sort of developing it through. And in order to get that, you need to become a member of the community. So that's at community.bimafterdark.com. We also have office hours and free sample files and a live other courses, as well as a live social feed where you basically have a dedicated helpline with myself and all the other members in the community. So, and there's quite a few members here as well who will tell you how much they enjoy being in that community. So if you're interested in downloading the sample file from today, then head on over to community.bimafterdark.com and check it out. And so what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go through the sheets and sort of show where this project's at. Like I said, I'm in the process of getting it to the point where I feel confident in getting pricing, which you can get pricing as it progresses. You need to start talking to contractors, getting enough information and scope that they can feel comfortable giving you a number, have them come out, see the site, all that good stuff, and then also working towards the permit process as well. So kind of doing two things at the same time. So let me jump over. Let me jump over here to the site plan first. So there's a site plan. If I go over here, you can see we've got some demo plans. One thing you'll notice with with my drawings, my set of drawings, is I like to have fun with the views, the fact that we're using a model, and play with the idea. I also use a lot of color. This is something that I know people have different opinions on. My opinion is that most of the time we're viewing this as PDFs these days, which is awesome. And then also these are small residential projects, so I'm perfectly happy paying if I have to print in color for the clarity and quality of drawings. So I'll pay a couple extra bucks for printing in color, the 24 by 36 sheet. So not that big of a deal. So here's some of the demo plans as they are right now. These are currently some text notes that's going to get converted too. So these are actually text notes that I will be converting as well. Here's a basement level floor plan sheet, window schedule, door schedule. You can see I have a little axon on the top that shows the layout of the basement level. Here's the first floor floor plan level sheet with some typical details. These are converted. These are old CAD files that have been converted. That I'm going to try to think of a better way to do it, but they are fully Revit details. They're not CAD files anymore. And honestly, yeah, most of them are still kind of valid. I try not to put typical details that aren't valid anymore. Here's the roof plan. You'll notice I actually put some full axons on the left-hand side of the roof plan with even some notes. These are not text notes. These are tags, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you can kind of get a sense of where the project's at right now. One of the things I got to fix right now is this 2 3/16 slope. I got to get there. But some elevation sheet with some notes. I'm still in the process of sort of noting that guy up, but you could see 4 elevations with. I will usually put the window schedule on the elevation sheet because you see windows there. Why would you not? Here's a building section, one direction. Here's another building section, as well as that porch section. We've got reflected ceiling plans pretty much done, as well as some structural plans. So, and I think we talked about this last week, so I won't go through too many of these, but foundation plan, first floor framing plan, again with axons and 3D views to associate with it. Attic for, actually one thing that we did add from last week, which I think I talked about a little bit in the live stream, is somebody in the community, actually Tom, I believe it was, and sorry Tom if it's not you, Tom McDermott, I think, but sent me this awesome beam system family tag. And so you could see what this does is it's actually, it's a beam system. So what it's doing is recognizing the system and it's giving you that information there, which is pretty cool. So you can see it says 2x8 at 32 inches, 2x8 at 16 inches. So now you can throw in this tag that runs across, and obviously you can do it with that generic annotation and so on and so forth. But I really like the way that it pulls some information from the beam system, which is pretty sweet. Attic and roof framing, a couple 3D diagrams of the structure all built up. Another 3D diagram of the structure all built up. One thing I guess I'll point out on this view, which is kind of neat, is graphically, it's hard to depict certain things certain ways sometimes, and so I actually, in this case, I actually did 2 views that are actually overlapped, and so that's because then I had the ability to do different things with phasing and visibility and view separation that was actually really hard to do with not having overlapping views, which is kind of neat. So as long as you put one view on first and the next view on top, it actually does that, which I think is kind of cool. And I think it did the same thing here too. I don't remember the exact reason why I couldn't get the visual to look the way I wanted to, but there was something. It'll probably come to me. But either way, kind of a cool technique for anyone who hasn't done that before. And of course, I just screwed up the alignment. All right. I should undo that. Hold on. Well, this isn't the live file. What am I talking about? Okay. Structural, more structural. This we're going to talk about in a different episode, which is my plumbing concept drawing, I call it. So I'm going to have a whole episode on this, so we won't dive into it too much. But super fun drawing to set up there. And then I'm also going to have a whole other episode on these power plans and the electrical side of it, which again is also super fun. So that's kind of where the drawing set is. But what we're really going to focus on today is these guys right here. So even if I go into this floor plan, you notice I click this. This is not a text note. Okay. So before I talk about what it is, I guess what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about why. I talk about the fact that it's not a keynote. So I know a lot of people probably assumed originally I was going to go right to keynotes, and I'm going to talk about why. I'll first start by saying I do like keynotes. I think it's a great system that I think will work for many people. Works especially on larger projects, especially projects where you have large spec books, for example. Having the keynotes associate with specs and spec sections and then give detail, it's awesome, right? I think it makes sense to that extent. I'll tell you why I don't personally like keynotes and why I chose not to go that route. I've been doing text notes for at least the residential small scale stuff for the typical wall sections for a while. And it's the same trap you probably all get stuck into, right? You have a wall section. It's pretty typical as far as just the notes themselves, maybe obviously not the model elements, but the notes themselves. And so it's easy just to bring them and keep carrying them through and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of downfalls of that process, right? They're just text notes. They have no association with the elements. They have no association with each other. So if you change them in one, you got to change them all over the place. And so, so I've always carried them. So for the longest time, I've been wanting to convert to something smarter, okay? The keynote process, and somebody just mentioned it right in the chat, is it needs a better keynote manager. Because the keynotes are managed and hosted in this notepad, essentially, right? It's a text file, right? A TXT file. You can use some managers, and I've seen some good managers. I'm not going to name them all. I know Revit has a manager. I know a couple other tools, add-ins have managers, which will help the process. But that process alone of setting that up initially for me is daunting, and just doesn't seem to go with my workflow as far as how I develop these drawings. I want to be able to basically type in as I'm going along and then have these items associated to elements. I don't really care about the list of the management and so on and so forth. So the other piece that I part of the reason why I'm not a huge fan of keynotes is because in downstream uses, and I know this probably doesn't matter to too many people, but as somebody who works on the contractor side as well, I will tell you that that text file kind of needs to exist for everybody at some point in time, and then you need some way to be able to read and manage it. Because what happens is when models are published to other tools, I believe including even ACC, and I'll have to confirm this, I didn't double check this, but I know for sure in Assemble and a couple other tools, even dumping out to like Navis and so on, you get the keynote, but not the keynote description. You only get one piece of that. And anyone who's used keynotes knows that there's lots of different ways to make it look the way you want and utilize it the way you want. And that alone has turned me off of the process. For this, honestly, I probably could use it. And honestly, you could probably set up a similar system that I'm going to show you today using the keynotes. But that alone is a super downer for me. So the idea and concept of setting up a keynote file and then managing all these keynotes and stuff alone just turns me off to the idea. Then the downstream use and how I've dealt with it in the past on even larger files, it kind of just said I just never really wanted to use keynotes. Again, I'm not bashing them. I think they're great. I think any firm who's taken the time to set this up is probably benefiting greatly from it. But that's not the approach I want to take. So the approach I'm taking, actually, I'm going to give credit to a couple different people because it's kind of, I've heard it from a few different folks. One is from Dan Stein, who's been on the show here before. He was actually at Niche BIM, which is my live conference back in September, talking about some of the practices at Lake Flato. And also, I believe Brian Mackey, I don't remember if he was on this show or maybe on Nick's show or just in general on maybe a class at a conference somewhere. But this technique is very much borrowed from their inspiration. So I appreciate and I want to give them credit for that. And so what are we talking about today? We're talking about using two things really right now, and it could expand beyond it. But we're talking about using multi-category tags and material tags. And we could talk about generic annotations, and I could sort of I could show you a little bit. The thing with generic annotations as a process is they don't necessarily associate to elements. They associate to just that symbol. And so that's works for things like maybe demo plans or something and general notes, but maybe not what I'm talking about today. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of the end product, and then we'll talk about how to create it and how I'm sort of developing this. And again, this is really a work in progress for me too. I'm learning this process. I'm creating and understanding it, and I'll talk about the pros and cons too, because anyone who knows if you as much as the text notes themselves still have sucky features and they've improved them, but they're still a very annoying text editor in Revit. When you start using tags, it's even more annoying, right? Because you even lose things like the grip of the length and all that good stuff. Okay, so let me jump in real quick. I saw Josiah just asked, what font am I using? I'm actually using Arial Narrow, believe it or not. I should just riff on that for a second. I used to be a architect type font guy, and I had a couple nice ones that were architect handwriting font, and I've slowly, moved on from that as far as just, some of the limitations of custom fonts and some of the things you run into. I know now we've got a lot of good Windows fonts that work, and I'm not opposed to it. I think architecture style fonts look really nice, but for this I'm just using Arial Narrow. Works on any computer in the world. It's compressed enough that it pulls it in a little bit, and it looks generally better than like Arial or Helvetica or any of those things. So that's actually what I'm using now, and I've sort of converted my template to that. So if you look closely, even at bold, right, this is Arial Narrow. Okay, so let's talk about what these are right now. Okay, so I'm actually gonna start. I'll go into that wall section and we'll start there. So let me jump into that wall section and I'll talk about because this is kind of where I've been working through the process of converting it. And you'll notice, actually, I'll go real quickly. I'll select right now, all visible in view. We've got text notes. Okay, so there's 10 text notes still in here. And I'm planning on converting quite a few of them. I guess I'll jump into limitations real quick. And this is a limitation in general of Revit, is if you use the installation tool. Anyone who uses the installation tool, raise your hand. It's actually, it's a great tool, right? You just click, if I click create similar, you just draw a distance, and you can change the bulge as well as the thickness of it, right? And so super powerful, useful tool. But the damn thing can't be tagged. Like, I don't understand that. Like, why would you do that, Revit? In Autodesk, like it's such a cool detail item that's so useful, but you can't tag the damn thing. And so right now those are all still text notes, right? And I believe, and Steve, actually, I saw Steve Brosh, I think, was in here, said that maybe Aaron has a family that he's created. So Aaron, I'll reach out to you maybe afterwards that lets you do this, or lets you tag it. I guess if you create a fancy repeating detail item or something, you could do it. But I really like the installation. It's lightweight. It works really fast. But unfortunately, you can't freaking tag it. How crazy is that, right? Okay, so installation right now is still this guy, which kind of sucks. But this is a detail item for rigid installation, so this is a tag, right? So this is a multi-category. So what you'll notice, and again, I'm literally in the process. I started with an out-of-the-box tag, and I'm creating this as we speak. So bear with me, but also I'm going to show you how to do it. And so what you'll notice, if I select this guy, this is just a multi-category description tag. And so you see right now I have 3 of them. I have a multi-category comments tag, multi-category description tag, multi-category description long, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then there's a multi-category tag, just tag. I'm not really sure what that is. Let's see. I'm not really sure what just that one. That one might have been defaulted in there or something. Maybe it uses like the type or something. But either way, so what I'm using is I'm using the description. And so we'll walk through that. But there is also another type of tag. It's not just the multi-category tag, okay? If I go over here where I'm talking about some specific materials, this is a material tag. Hopefully you can read that. Okay, a material tag. And so what that allows me to do is if I create similar, let me click this guy, create similar. Okay, so you could see as I'm going through this wall, channel gap siding by owner, exterior zip wall system, structural lumber, 1/2-inch gypsum wallboard. Right, so I can just quickly do this if you want to see, right? But I also can click this guy, which is the multi-category tag, and I can tab to the wall and I can put in a tag that says like a system thing, like here's the overall wall system, right? So by combining these two tags within this element, right, you can now start building this information. Now, right now, this is using the description of the element, and I'll show you where that is. I have one more that I've added, which is also using the comments, which is an instance parameter, which you guys may know. And so this one, there is no comment in here. But if I did grab the wall and I say I want to change the comment to show exterior bearing wall, as well, that's kind of a weird note, but you get it. Exterior bearing wall, right? And press OK or Enter. You can see, you can see there it is there, exterior bearing wall. See, which is the comments of that. Okay, so what that means, right, is with every element, and so the multi-category tag pretty much works on every element in Revit. There may be some limitations, and I can go through with a list, but honestly, every element, and that includes detail items, not just 3D items, okay? So you can use the same tag type for your 3D elements, your wall system, your system families, like your ceilings, walls, doors, your in place or family components that you brought in, as well as your detail items, okay? Except for insulation. All right, so the reason I went with description is just it was one of the type parameters that I feel like I didn't use for anything, and it exists in pretty much every element within Revit. There's a description, so I guess I could have went. There's other category or other areas that you could use. I just used that one. Fine. And then comments or something. You could always make it a custom parameter as well for instance and types. But I like using the built-in. And then the material one is very interesting because it's using the actual material. And so the way this works, and I'll show you how to set it up in a second, is when I go through. So this, let me delete these ones here. So if I go to a clean section here, or let's go to the other side, sure. So if I go to the other side, and I'll take the multi-category tag, right? So if I go in here, you could see I could hit this, right? Oops. Here's my hurricane clip, which this is a detail item, right? And it's got the note built into it. So if I say create similar, I could do a tag on the wall as well. Let me do that again. Okay. I could do, let me try that. If I do free end instead of attached end, it usually makes it a little easier. And so as I'm harping around here, what you'll see is the items that I've given these descriptions to, they're popping up, right? So I can quickly just tag this item. I can tag this ridge vent, right? I can tag whatever I've got in here, ceiling fan. That's actually a default one you can see there. And you go through it, right? And so it allows you the ability to quickly tag these items. Oh, the insulation baffles, right? You can see those insulation baffles. Of course, not the insulation itself. And that's using the multi-cat. And so what that's doing is in any one of these families, if I click this family here, which this is a detail item, right? I can go to edit type, and right here, it says description, right? So that's literally what I'm using is whatever I type in here. I'll zoom in a little, even though zooming in, you can see here, description, right? I guess you could use type comments. It wouldn't change the deal, but I'm using description. And so the same thing exists within, these walls or these studs. So if I wanted to give this roof a description, I can go to edit type and you'll see there's a description right here, right? So the way I'm kind of approaching this is systematic notes. So like, for the system families, I should say, like an overall system note is something I would put into the description, and then I might use like a material tag to tag just the layers of that, right? So you could do the roofing, the underlayment, the sheathing, and so on and so forth. You go through and you tag, but then you could hit it all and say like some overall generic roofing note. Actually, an example of that could be this foundation wall, right? So if I take my description, you could see the foundation wall actually has this huge chunky thing, which just lays out. This is just a note that lays out the entire, in words, right, the description of the foundation. And I'll flip this one to long so you can see, right? And it just lays out the whole thing. But if I wanted to have different layers of material tags within it, I can click in and actually change the tag the different layers. So that's kind of what I was doing even with the roof, right? So if I now go to under annotate and I go to material tag, you'll see if I hit the top, I'm just hovering over it for now. If I hover over the top, you'll see it says new asphalt shingles with water barriers required. If I go here, it's plywood sheathing. If I go here, it's structural lumber, right? Or you can call that whatever you want to call it, right? And now I'm able to do that while also maybe having a tag that can show like the overall system. And so you can see how you can quickly build, whether you have detail items you bring in or whether you have 3D elements that you go, that go through it, right? You can quickly build this stuff. And what's cool about it is it's not just in the section, right? It's anywhere you do it, right? If I jump back into my plans, oh, where'd they go? Here we go. Right, if I jump back into my plans, you can see this hydronic radiator heater. If I go around, wall. You can see there's 4-inch wall base painted, right? I'm just tagging all these items as I go through it, but you're not typing anymore. And the benefits of this are obvious, right? You can definitely generate the views quicker and tag quicker, right? And you're not typing it or copying and pasting it and aligning it and so on and so forth. But you're also, if you're changing that note, it's changing it for that element everywhere, right? You're taking advantage of the information, the idea of BIM, right? The second you use a tag, right? Similar if you're in a window, right? And I change this to a W27A, guess what? It's a W27A now, right? All your views, anywhere where it's tagged, it updates. The same thing with these notes, right? Similar to Keynotes, right? It's the same idea. Being smarter about it is going to help you manage and maintain this stuff like so much better. Okay. So I'm sorry, I saw a bunch of stuff in here. We're going to talk about justifications and some of the downfalls of it, and I'll show you that a little bit too. I was just reading through the chat there. So So as you can see, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a quick break in a minute, and then I'm going to show you how to actually just make this if you want to start this from scratch. Okay, but before we jump into it, I did want to talk about sort of the pros and cons, so to speak, of this process and using tags as general. And I think that's what you guys are talking about in the chat right now. This tag as is any tag, right? You're a little limited with functionality and whatnot. Like, first of all, you can only do broken leaders like this. You can't do curved leaders, which, to some people may not be a big deal, but I was kind of getting into the groove of curved leaders. I just like the way they looked. So you're limited to that. You notice I can't stretch and push and pull this text, right? I have no way to do that. And that's because the tags just don't let you do that. So there's a set length for these. And so what you end up doing is things like creating multiple tag types. And there's a lot of different workarounds to make that work. And so I just right now just have two. What I'm trying to do right now is I'm basically trying to see how many things I can get done with just the one set text length. And then the only one I made a long one for right now was that concrete note, because it was just not returning right. So I'm trying to see basically at different scales and different notes, like how fast how many. I was just reading the chat, I got distracted. How much can I do with just one text note length in this tag? So if I go into this tag real quick, just to show you guys what I'm talking about, you can see here's the description, and basically what you see here, this length, that's the length it is. Right. And so not only do we not be able to push and pull it, but we also don't have the ability to actually control that length via the family. Yes, I know there's workarounds, and I'm not going to get into that this episode, but there are workarounds. And then as far as the justification, right, I'm doing a left justification the whole time. The way I got around that for the tags you were seeing is even though most of the time I keep my text as actually no, it's transparent. That's weird. I thought it was opaque. It does this weird thing. So let me go on this side here. Let's see. So if I take it here, so you'll notice even though it's left justified, you'll notice it actually puts the leader at the end of the text when you do it this way. And so I'm okay with doing things like, of course, why do I hit there? Doing things like if I take this trim, and I do stuff like that. You have to sort of determine, are you going to go left or right justified? You'll see it lines up either side, which is fine. And so I've kept them at left, and you could do this, or you could do that. but you'll see it's actually, it is locking to either side. Not exactly what we're talking about, but I hopefully that gives you an idea of the justification and then the limitations of it. And so obviously that's a little bit of a pain in the butt. The fact that you can't modify, and also gripping from the middle is something that you got to get used to. Notice the grips in the middle. Anyone who's used Revit for a long time knows that text, and I'll make one right here real quick. Right, text grips from the top left. So here's text right there, and then here's a tag. So that's kind of weird. It's minimal weird, but it's super weird. I don't know. I just don't know why you can't just make text through a tag work like text through a text thing. But okay. So real quick before we jump into, I'm going to show you how to sort of create this yourself from scratch. I did want to take a moment to thank our sponsor of this video and this series for this season, which is revitfamily.biz. All right, so Brenton Weiberg, who is the creator of RevitFamily.biz, he makes some incredible families for residential Revit architects, to be honest. Cabinet families, door families, windows families, electrical families, and he will actually be coming on the show in a couple weeks to introduce a completely new line of families, which I think you guys are going to be super excited about. Either way, if you're interested on checking out any of his families, I am using a bunch of his families in here as well because they are incredibly awesome, including casework and electrical families. Head on over to revitfamily.biz, use the offer code 20, RevitKid24. I'll put it all in the description below, and you'll save 20% off any bundle or package of families. So thank you, Brenton, for supporting this series, this go around, and he'll be on the show in a couple weeks to talk about his one of his new family bundles that he's releasing. Okay, sorry, just reading through here. Okay. And no, Ryan was asking about curved leaders. No, I told you, it's one of those things. I was never a curved leader guy, but then I got into it for some reason. And actually, I'll show you the example with the curved leaders. Let me see. There you go. So here's curved leaders, right? This is the text note wall section before I started converting it, by the way, for anyone interested. And I don't know, for some reason I started really liking it. I think it's because of the way it breaks up the note as it comes across all the geometry that's usually not curved type of thing. But I don't know, I really got into it. And so it's kind of a bummer that tags can't use that, considering it's a leader that exists for text. It's just a leader. Why can't we use leaders? But yeah, unfortunately, no. Okay, so let's let's show you how to create this thing from scratch in case you guys wanted to develop a system just like this. So I'm actually going to create a new project, mainly because I want you to have a project that, and I'm even going to use the out of the box template, which probably has a tag and it doesn't. I don't know. We'll see. If we go to, it is loaded. That's all right. We'll leave the one in this. Okay, so I'm going to start with the default template. So this can be done on any one of your templates and so on and so forth. And I'm going to quickly, let's just draw a building with some walls. Actually, why am I drawing a building? I'll just copy and paste some of my building in there. Sure. So let's jump this guy. I'm sure it's not going to copy and paste great, but let's just bring over walls, doors, windows. Everyone's probably like, oh my God, you're selecting across the whole building. What's the matter with you? All right, we're going to do walls, windows, and floors and roofs. Let's see how much stuff breaks. Just for fun. Is something pinned? Seriously? Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's jump into here. And we're going to place it. Or not. I'm going to read the chat where you guys going. D-Roots 1 is awesome. Yes, D-Roots is an incredible plugin. D-Roots and PyRevit are essentials plugins for anyone who hasn't dug into them. Although I don't know what's going on with D-Roots in the subscription. Maybe if anyone is on here from the D-Roots team, I'm curious to know if you're still going to have your tools for free or not. Okay. So I placed it, or I attempted to. It's going to delete some stuff because of whatever. Okay, so you can see now it's brought into here. Fine. Okay, so the way this is done is it's actually fairly simple. So I'm going to take this this section that was in here, and we'll do it in a section view. And we'll turn this thing to fine. We'll turn it to, let's say like a 3/8. Maybe do a 1 inch. There we go. Ugh, can't do this without any of my settings. That's okay. So you can see we got walls, doors, windows, right? Here's our empty section. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, because that's how you get families these days. And I'm going to go to Annotations. And I'm going to search for multi-category. So just search multi. Okay, so you can see there's multi-category description, multi-category tag, and window tag multi-category. So I'm just going to do the multi-category description tag and load it in. Okay, and so right off the bat, you basically have what you need, right? So if I go to annotate and I go to multi-category tag, okay, now I can start tagging things. You'll notice it looks a little different. So first it brought through all the stuff that I had from my file, right, which is kind of cool. But I could also type this in. And so what's neat about this is, yeah, you can go to the elements, right, and I can click the element that I tag. So if it's this wall, I click the element, go to edit type, and go through it. But because I know this is a type tag, I can also just click in here and say 2x4 furred wall, provide 2-inch airspace or whatever. I don't know. I'm just making something up. Airspace. Okay. And then it's going to say, you're changing the type parameter. Do you want to do this? Yes. So you can develop this system as if you were creating text notes. And that's what I liked about it the most, right? With Keynotes, it's a system, right? Here, I could just literally just, text note essentially my wall section, but be building my library of tags as I'm doing it, which I think is super cool. The graphically, what you saw mine versus what this is here is there's a couple things I did, right? So go into edit family, and of course it opens the other family. Let me close this. It opens the one from mine. So if I go to edit family, you'll see for some reason the Autodesk stuff now, and I don't know if it's because of the new template, is all using Trebuchet for their font, which I do not like Trebuchet. But so I can just change this to Arial Narrow, which is what I'm using. I can change it to the color if I want, that kind of stuff. You can change the size, the opacity, whatever. If you want to see where, if I go to VG, I can see where those reference planes are. You can see how this is set up. And I think I actually left the distance exactly where it was. So now if I load this back into here, I can override it, right? And there we go. And then the only other thing here is under the type of this, you have to set up the arrowhead, okay? So it's kind of weird in the sense that because it's a tag you're setting up. So the only thing that you can set up in the type for this is the arrowhead. And of course you're going with whatever's there. So I'm going to do arrow filled. Okay, and so there you go. All right, so here, here's our tag. So now what I can do is I can just go through this project, and like here maybe I say, 2 by floor framing, or just 2 by framing, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. And you could just say yes. Again, this is a type parameter, so just be ready to be doing, type notes, right? If you want to do comment or instance notes, I'll show you in a second. So then here I can just say like typical interior door, whatever notes you want to put. It's all up to you. But as I'm doing this, I'm just saying yes. I'm building this library, right? So if I tag this, if I tag this same type, if I had this same door right here, right, and I tag it, there it is, right? If I tag this wall in another view, guess what? The same tag is there, right? So I'm building this as I go along, right? And then I was like, well, that's great. This is letting me build it, but maybe I want to do some instance things that I can also show on schedules because it's Revit, right? But maybe things like an instance parameter that says, not just I want the system to be a 2x6 system note, whatever. But then I maybe want a comment or an instance parameter that says bearing wall, or bearing wall with some, to provide sisters joists and blocking. I don't know, you get what I'm saying. And so in order to do that, what you have to do is create, instead of a description tag, use another parameter, use an instance parameter. And so I used comments in my case. So what I did here is I just went to edit family. I did a file save as. So I'm taking that description one and I'm doing a save as because I don't think out of the box had a comments one. And so I'm just going to call this multi-category comments tag. Click save, right? And now I hit this description. I'll edit the label, And instead of description, I'll just remove description and I'll use comments, right? And again, you could create an instance parameter, you could create a shared parameter, do whatever you need to do for this, but you get the idea. And so now this is comments. And so if I load this one in, right, and I go to create a tag, now you can see I have a description tag and a comments tag. So if I go into comments, right, notice how this is empty. Now in here, I can fill in these comments, and I could do the same. I could build it this way too. I could say like, north wall needs, I don't know, north wall provide blocking for siding or something, whatever. Right? And now that lives in this wall only, right? It doesn't live in all the types of that wall. And of course here you do have to set up the tag as well, or the arrow as well, arrow 15 degrees. Okay. So now you can go through and you can build, right? You can build your library as you're building a wall section or a floor plan or a elevation or whatever you're doing, right? Pretty sweet, right? And so that was pretty awesome. You know, I've been working through that. It's been working out great for me. And so that's kind of how you set it up. But then the material tag is something that I never even thought in a million years I would use. And so I'll give credit to Dan Stein for this, because I think the first time I saw it was when he showed some of the Lake Flato projects, either when he was on the live stream here or at the conference that I hosted back in September. But either way, material tags. And so I've used material tags here and there, but I never really got into them to this level until he showed me what they were doing, and it makes like a ton of really cool sense. And so here's how it is. Okay. So let's go into insert, and we're going to load Autodesk family, and we're going to look for a material tag. So I'm going to search material, and there's a material tag there, and I'm going to click load. Looks like there was one in here, so I'll just load whatever one was. I'll just use whatever one was in there. So now I'm going to go to annotate, and I'm going to click material tag. Okay. And you'll see, right, by default, what is it doing? It's doing the material name. Okay, so I'm just putting it there. And so I think that's probably why I never used them. I was like, well, material naming can get crazy, and it's really just used for, for model creator usage and not really for the data per se. I mean, we get wild with our material naming sometimes. And so I'm like, that's kind of eh. And then I think it was when I saw Dan doing it. I was like, well, why don't we just use the description? I was like, oh, interesting. And so lo and behold, if we take this guy, you could see it's actually using, go to label, it's actually using the material description, not the material name. Okay, so what does that mean for all of you guys who don't know what the material description is? Oops, let me go back to this. When I go to my material editor in Revit, so if I go to manage materials and I go to the editor, which hopefully will open somewhere on my screen. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, here it is. Weird. Okay, so material name is one thing, but under identity, there's description right here, right? And then you could also use comments, right? You could use either one of them, but description is nice. And so I can go in here, and what's cool about description, and this is like the only place, because this does not happen in the Revit, even in the material tag, like description, you can actually do enter returns, which is crazy. I don't know why it's the only place that you can do that, but you can actually do enter returns and write in descriptions. So I can go through here. I can look for that cast in place concrete, right? So what was it? Cast in place concrete. I don't remember which one this is. Let's see, gray. Yeah, so this one here, right? And so this description, I can change it to 4-inch. You don't have to do dimensions in it, right? I don't know if you would want to do dimensions in it, so you might just want to do concrete slab on grade, provide vapor barrier, or even just say like, whatever note you want to do. I'll just do concrete slab on grade. Okay, click OK. Click OK. And now you'll notice, oh, of course it was the wrong concrete. Let's see that again. Concrete cast in place gray. Oh, that's weird. Was it not using the description? Oh, I didn't press apply. Okay, let's try that again. Concrete slab on grade, or whatever you want to do. Cast in place concrete, or just concrete. Click OK. Click OK. Oh, what is happening here? maybe this text note, maybe I didn't edit it. Hold on. Material description, edit label. Oh, it's the other. I'm doing the wrong description. Why am I doing that? Hold on. No, this is the description. What? Oh, I'm going to the wrong cast. Oh my god. Am I using the wrong cast in place? No, it's not saving. Why is it not saving? Concrete. Apply. There it is. What on earth did I just not press apply? That was so weird. Anyway, so anyways, it's using this description you could see to pull to there. So I can go through any of these. I can go through my siding, right? And notice, and what I mean by siding, annoying names, like I have really bad naming right now as I was developing this because I was just creating it for schematic design, right? Siding horizontal new white 4-inch, siding horizontal new 4-inch, siding vertical new 4-inch or vertical, whatever. And so now I can go in here and I can change this to say whatever I want. Right now it's saying siding by owner. But you could see, like I could type in here something different from that, and the same thing could apply. You can have a you can use description, you can use comments, you can use the keyword, you can use a bunch of those if you wanted to. And then what's great about that is not only does it carry through the sections, but if you went to a floor plan, now you can do your notes for the floor plan, your roof plan, your elevations, right, so on and so forth. So if I go over to annotate. I go to material tag, right? You can see there it is, woo! And you can go in and change the look of that to match your standards and so on. And so that's how I developed what you saw there. And I've done it, if I go to my roof plan, roof plan for phase 2. Oh, that's roof framing plan. Sorry about that. All right, roof plan. You can see that's a tag, right? That's a material tag. This one is a material tag, right? This is a material tag. And so now when I'm creating any of these things, right, you can see I'm just doing this. I'm going through and I'm hitting this stuff as we go along, right? And then the elevations, same thing, right? When you get to an elevation now, you can do the same exact thing. It's much faster to go through, and I don't think I did all the materials yet, so but you can see channel gap siding by owner, right? That was a material, yeah. New standing seam metal roof, right? New asphalt roof, right? So now I'm tagging it. And again, if I change this, so if this went from metal, standing metal seam to, I don't know, corrugated metal, right? So I do corrugated, God, that's spelling, corrugated metal, right? Now if I go back to my roof plan, look at that, corrugated metal, right? And that right there is the key, right? Whether you're using a material tag, we're using description, we're using comments, we're using a custom parameter, right? The key is you're doing it the smart way, right? And so the less text notes I'm using, the more efficient I'll be, and the smarter I'll be doing my details and drawings, and then building a template from there, right? As you saw, I just copied that in. So if I take this project now and I strip it down and I create a new template now from this project, which was of course created from my other one, but now I've got a template that's got all of the stuff built into it, and the detail items are the same too. That's the other thing I should have highlighted a little more is. If I go to my building wall section, right, things like hurricane clips, it'd be cool if we modeled them, but it's really not, don't really need to model them, right? But it's a detail item. If I go to edit type, you can see right here, H8 hurricane tie, each rafter's end, blah, 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 10D nails to the plate, and so on and so forth. And that's the note right there. So now any project I bring this thing in, right, any project I bring this detail item in, it comes with that information. Right? Boom, boom, boom. We got it there. Okay. So, and if you really wanted to, right, we could now start scheduling these notes and stuff like that. Like once it's data that's attached to elements, then the sky's the limit, as well as downstream uses from there too. Does the new spell checker work with these? I have no idea. Is there a spell checker that checks parameters? I don't know. I think the spell checker is text notes and schedules and stuff. But if there was a spell checker that checked parameters, I guess we can see. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. I can check it since we're here, but I'm pretty sure the new. Let's see. That's a note there. Let's see. Nope. Spell check complete. I mean, maybe I don't have any spelled, but I bet there's more spelling errors. So it checks. It looks like the spell checker is just checking the text notes. I mean, it's even in the note. It's in the text note area, right? Even find replace is text notes. So I'm pretty sure spell checker. I don't even think it hits. I don't even think it hits schedules. I think it's literally just text notes. There may be a plugin. Is there a plugin or an add-in that checks more than just that? But yeah. So Tyler was asking, would regular annotations align with margins of the tags? Yeah. So there's different aligns that are going on there. So this is a tag. Let me see if there's a text note. So this is actually a text note here, and so it actually does not line up. You can see it's not looking for it, unfortunately. These guys are looking for each other. Like you can see, it's locking there. This guy is not, unfortunately. But I'm hoping to get rid of all these guys, so I don't really care at the end of the day. But yeah, the actual text notes, which these are of course not. No, can't find a text note. So yeah, so the limitations and the areas I'm trying to focus on, right, is things like the insulation is one. I'm trying to figure out what makes sense for sort of zero thickness materials like vapor barriers and water and air, that kind of stuff. And so like right now that's still a text note. I'm trying to figure it out. But things like strapping, for example, right? There's a note here for steel wall strapping, even though we're going to lapse sheathing. So I'm not really sure why I keep this note here. I have a detail item that I created here. I'll actually copy it out a little bit. This is just a detail item, right? That you can push and pull as you needed. But that detail item now exist. And so one of the things that you'll catch people doing, or you'll catch yourself doing, is like even here, right, showing the exto seal, down on the bottom here. I just took a piece of a rigid insulation family and created a type called exto seal, and then that has the note about the phenoc tape, between the sole plate and whatnot. And so that's just a detail item that's gone in there. Anchor bolts, all this stuff is detail items, rigid insulation. But I am trying to figure out like this waterproof membrane. Do I make a detail item just so that I have the ability to do this? I probably will. And maybe it's similar to like the what's it called, the strapping, right? Just make one that's a line based or a length based detail that lets you just kind of put it there. It's thin, it shows there, and maybe you go around, or like a line based type of detail. But I think that's what it's gonna do, right? So things that maybe you used to do actually the gravel is another example, right? So the gravel, this is a filled region, right? And so that might be one where filled regions actually have a description, believe it or not, which is kind of cool. But I may still do something different with that as well. I've started modeling the gravel because, and I'll show you why in a second, but believe it or not, the filled region has a description. So if I take the multi-category description, you don't even need a detail item. You can use the filled region. But I kind of like the idea of being a detailed item. But you'll notice I actually am starting to model some of the gravel, even here, right? This gravel is actually modeled underneath. And that seems overkill. But remember, this project is one where I'm also going to be the GC. And so I'm going to use this model for my quantities and ordering materials and so on. So to me, there's absolutely no reason why I wouldn't. Because then I can just say, okay, how much rock do I need? Instead of doing all kinds of weird calculations, it's like, boom, do 6 inches of gravel, model this thing like that, and I know exactly how much I need, 149 cubic feet, figure that out in yards, and that's what I need there. Same for the footing, right? You can see I'm starting to build this in a little bit. This is gravel here, and so I'm going to start filling that in. Same thing here. This is actually modeled gravel with split, just adjusting the floor system. So, yeah, I'm just going to double check some of the yeah, I don't. Christopher's asking about the spell checker again. Yeah, I don't know. But you could always make a schedule of these now. Remember, this is data now that exists in there, and so you could do something like just make a schedule of all your descriptions and a schedule of all your note comments and a schedule of all your whatever, like multi-category schedule, and then you could just pop it out into like Excel or something, right? Just open it up and do a quick spell check if you wanted to. And then you'd have to sort of port it back in using some sort of a tool. But anyways, we won't go that far down. I guess you could always manually change it, but that's kind of goofy. Let's see. Control Enter to force line break with tag. I'm just reading through some of this stuff here. Yeah, I don't know about some of the align stuff that you guys are asking about. Yeah, I'm not it pretty much is going to use the reference plane and align from tag to tag is basically what's going on here. So it's using this reference plane, or it's using, it's kind of interesting because it does align on the right side sometimes, which is, doesn't really make much sense, but you can see it's aligning on the left side using the reference plane. So if you wanted to, you could always do, if you're picky about it, then you could make a bunch of different material tags, right? You could do left justify, right justify, center justify. You could do different lengths of them. I know there's some workarounds for dealing with the lengths that could get you a little bit of flexibility, but for the most part, what I've done, what you saw right here, like this view right here, this is all using the same text length, and it doesn't look that bad. Yeah, maybe I'd like to box these out a little differently, but honestly, like, it's all the same. Nothing's going to go further or shallower than it needs to be, and I can align it all to the left side, so it's got generally has the same look as text notes. Whew. Sweet. I'm going to make that add in if you want to. Yeah, go ahead. Someone make that add in for me. All right, thank you guys. I can't believe I made it the whole hour. So that's it. That's the secret that I wanted to share with you guys that I'm developing now. And obviously, if I learn more and go through it, I will, I'll share it. I'll share more with you guys. But hopefully, you can take this, start playing around with it. give me some feedback on how you guys are doing it. Make sure you comment below if you tried it out or you're going to try it out. But I'm really enjoying the process of converting these text notes to actual data that now exists inside the model, and then seeing where the downstream benefits are. Even modifying my floor plans to just show those, right? And so, yeah, go through it. Insert those multi-category tags, those material tags, play around with it, and let's see if we can improve together. So with that, again, thanks to Brenton at revitfamily.biz. If you're interested in checking out the sample family, hanging out in office hours with me, or sample file, hanging out with office hours with me and other members, and just hanging out with a really cool group of people learning Revit together, head on over to community.bimafterdark.com. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, and have an awesome weekend, guys. Talk soon.